Good afternoon, Professor Ryan.
Good afternoon.
I'm with Jai here and I'm Anuradha. We are representing the Creative Communications Committee, and thank you so much once again for taking your time out to just have this short interview with us where we'd like to know you more and your experiences more and how that can help all of us here at the MEM, in addition to, of course, the management class. So starting off, if you could just tell us a little bit more about your experiences, how you have come to be a professor here at Duke and for the MEM program. Just a little bit about your background and how that is tying you over here at Duke.
Good, thank you, Anuradha. And first, I want to say thank you to both you and Jai for your leadership, your contribution to our program. That means a lot to me, and it's an honor and privilege and pleasure, and I mean all three words, to do this. The main reason I'm sure that I came to Duke was because of Duke basketball. All right. I thought maybe I could get Cameron tickets, at least more cheaply, and then I could do some teaching on the side.
But you have to do camp out for that, so.
I know, at my age. In fact, they promised me tickets here at the business school, but it turns out that was basically bait and switch. I haven't seen those tickets. But again, more seriously, I had been working, as my class students know, as a management consultant for about 35 years, and doing a variety of things. I had my own company. I had in-depth relationships with clients, with Chase and Merrill Lynch. They were clients for over 25 years apiece, Morgan Stanley, many years, Accenture, etc. And this was extremely gratifying and challenging work, and I loved it. But after about, again, a couple of decades, I started to realize that it was losing its meaning. It was still fun, it was still stimulating, it was rewarding financially and in other ways. I met some wonderful people, but one thing I said to myself was, I could see on my tombstone, all right, Ted Ryan, he helped raise Merrill Lynch's earnings per share by 50 basis points. And I thought, you know what, that doesn't quite do it for me anymore in terms of what I want my legacy to be and how I want to live my life. So I actually shut down my company. I continued some clients, some coaching, because I really liked it, and moved to Savannah, Georgia in the South, bought a boat, played a lot of tennis, and developed a course called Ethical Leadership for Armstrong Atlantic University, which is a part of the Georgia state system. And I found that I really loved teaching. And I'd done a little bit of it before I went into industry. But then actually, the more I thought about it, I realized I had been doing a lot of teaching through workshops and team meetings, etc. That consulting and managing and leading, there's a lot of teaching, there's a lot of persuasion that goes on. And that it's leadership, actually. And so I spent about 5 years there figuring out what do I really want to do next. And I concluded very clearly that I wanted to teach, I wanted to continue to do coaching, and I wanted to do consulting, but with clients that I really liked, that I believed in their mission. I felt that it would be really worthwhile to work with them. And it doesn't mean necessarily not-for-profits, but it means companies that are highly ethical, that they have really good products that can help people, and clients that have leaders whom I admire and respect and really want them to do well. As for example, to digress for a second, I have mentioned in class that I've been working with a local regional engineering firm and working with their CEO and their COO and their board, and I really like these guys. And because I like them so much and believe in the quality of their work, they're highly ethical, they're very, very good engineers, very good managers. It's been a real privilege to help them improve their governance and how they're really structuring themselves for the future. So I did figure out clearly I wanted to come back to teach, and another reason for coming back to teach is that, and I've said some of these things in class, that let's say I have a really successful workshop on managing and leading. Takes a day, maybe 2 days, and great ratings, fine, feel good, and then someone comes up, and this happens almost every single time. They say, this was great, I wish I would have had this X years ago. And sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 20 years ago. And that makes me sad. And they're frustrated and sad too, because they realize they could have had a almost completely different perspective on how to view other people, how to manage and lead them, how to view themselves. And in our class we talk about STEM versus humans, that they get it within a day, and they could have applied that different template toward their work for years. And so when, I remember it was one time, not that many years ago, maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, when that happened to me, and it was the final, I guess I needed a big enough hand to realize, you know what, I can fix that. I mean, I can start earlier and work with younger people who are just starting out in their careers, and they don't have to waste or at least sub-optimize all these years. We can give them the right concepts and tools vis-a-vis dealing with humans, versus just STEM, and I'll feel a lot better. It's like going up the supply chain upstream and earlier at the source, and that's exactly what I've experienced. And I think y'all may have noticed I do enjoy teaching very much. It's very gratifying to me to see people from all over the world, and again, regardless of where you all are from, what your ethnicity is, gender, your country of origin. There really are these fundamental principles about how do we help other humans thrive, both individually and together. And I love sharing that and helping students then apply it. So that then, by the way, just to finish, I did get a call from Duke. It was a surprise. It was through a third party. I think it was providential. When the associate dean here at Fuqua called, I actually thought it was a joke that one of my sons had set up, because they knew I actually wanted to come to Duke. That was my preference, so I could get Cameron tickets. And plus, they had mentioned in class that both sons went to Duke. Daniel graduated from Pratt as a mechanical engineer, so I thought it would just be fun to be in the same place that my sons were. And so when I got the call from a wonderful lady named Jennifer Francis, I didn't negotiate, I didn't do anything. I said, yes, I want to come teach. And she said, well, we need to talk. I said, fine, but this is what I want to do, and I'll do a good job for you. So I'm really grateful to be there.
This was really nice to know for us, especially knowing that we're just starting out in a career where we have moved on from engineering, which was a lot more STEM, versus now, dealing with the human side of things.
Right.
And for us, it's just as different as it was for you, moving on from consulting and from managing into leading a different arena of people.
Right.
So another question that I would like to ask you on behalf of all of us is, what have you seen from an employer's or a coach point of view that you find very challenging for students like us to pick up and mold ourselves differently? What do you think are the challenges that we face from your point of view?
All right, the complete answer would be see our course. Virtually, and then I will pick out several things. But seriously, one of the reasons I believe in our course, I mean, I am so impressed with all the courses that I've seen in the MEM and MEng programs, because I think for one primary reason is that, like myself, my colleague, faculty, friends, they all have experience. So they're not just talking theory. And we don't really have much time in that course compared with everything that you all could use for managing and leading. So if you recall, in the syllabus there are 7 objectives that I picked, each of which I think is really important for you to make progress in. And so every module is chosen to out of all the different things that I think will be helpful to you. But to pick out a couple, I think again that key decision to embrace the human subject matter with all of its unpredictability, the emotional stuff, the imprecision, the messiness of human psychology. That accounts for so much of whether or not that y'all are going to be not only effective but happy, to not keep being upset and frustrated that humans are humans. And we all get frustrated with particular humans. You know, you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, can get frustrated. But that's actually not fair. The last time I went in Chapel Hill, they were so friendly. We ended up laughing and had a great time. But obviously, we humans are not easy to deal with. And when it's not in a class situation, it's not a simulation, but where people's paychecks are at stake, where clients' well-being, sometimes their life, biomed, etc., very serious stakes are involved, our careers are at stake, then that's a lot of pressure. And for us to deal with humans under pressure, which sometimes brings out our best, but sometimes brings out our worst, that requires a lot of ability and requires this determination to keep our eyes on the mission, if you happen to be really frustrating me on my team, I have to keep my eyes on our overall mission, our objectives, on the kinds of values that I say I believe in, that I don't let anger or frustration lead me to say things that are hurtful, that I regret. So it takes, again, self-control, self-regulation, emotional intelligence, etc. And I think one final thing that I'd like to say that employers really look for is we're going to actually study level 5 leadership in the next couple of classes, where Jim Collins talks about going from good to great, and the kinds of leaders in his research that help do that are both fiercely determined, focused on the mission to succeed, and that could be a larger enterprise mission, or it could be just our project today, and yet they're humble. And if an employer finds that you have, again, a fierce determination to succeed, but not just your success, your team's success, and you do that with great confidence, but also humility, no arrogance, no ego, that's a terrific contribution. And I hired a lot of people for my own company, consulting company, and for my clients. And even before Jim Collins came out with his work, I was looking for people who, I didn't have the terminology at the time, but who were very determined, very confident, very much eyes on the prize, and yet had a humility about them which attracted other people to them rather than push them away.
That sounds good. That sounds good for us to know, because this adds on a lot more than what we learn, like you said, theoretical knowledge is there that we can start applying, and we have all these readings that help us and are there to inspire us to do more. But what would you say that after graduating from the MEM program with all this knowledge that we gain, the STEM side, the management side, and this human side, as we graduate, what would your top 3 tips be for us as students, probable managers, potential leaders, and path changers, pathfinders? What would you say are the top 3 lessons that you would like to give us, not just from a management point of view?
I'll try to limit it to 3. One is always keep in contact with your parents and your family. They appreciate that. But that leads, I think, to one of my most important learnings, that I'm what we call in English a late bloomer. I learn things late, like braces. That's too late. You should do it 50 years earlier. But being a very ambitious person, not ambitious toward earning a lot of money really, although I didn't want to be poor. I had a lot of student loans, but really ambitious to succeed, to excel, to make a difference. I was and am pretty driven in that way. I've just focused what that, changed what that means now. But it was very easy for me to let relationships slide, including my own marital relationship. That I commuted a couple of hours a day, consulting with major firms takes a lot of hours. I was tired. I mean, I worked 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. I'd go over to London once a week with the red eye and then get to work back in New York the next day. I mean, this was very, very demanding. And it was a part of the deal for a while, given the kinds of projects I was working with these major clients. But as I look back, I think my family for a while didn't get enough attention. They were neglected. And I mean, I did, when I was home, I would spend as much time as possible, but still you can't, what's the right word, to chunk relationships. One can do that sometimes with logistics, just-in-time inventory. The children don't grow up well with just-in-time inventory parents. And I mean, I corrected this soon enough, and that was one of the reasons why I actually started throttling back and getting better work-life balance, so I could really spend much more time with my family. But also, still, as I look back, I shortchanged myself because I had so little time to develop good adult friendships. And I like to play the flute a little bit, but I didn't have time to do that. I love sports, but I didn't have enough time to play as much. Just R&R, rest and recreation. So I strongly encourage you, and you may not need this. I mean, one of the observations about your current cohort is I think you all, on average, are more aware and more determined to live a higher quality life than just work yourselves to death. I hope that's true. So I really do. I strongly encourage that. I think another really important encouragement, which you already know given from our course, but is to continually be self-learners about the external environment and about oneself. It's a constant set of, I wonder why that didn't work, or I don't understand what just happened, or I do, why did that work? But if a team meeting went really well, all right, I see what I did that made it go so well. But if I do the same thing and then it doesn't work, maybe I haven't figured out what the principle is. Maybe there was an interaction between my particular approach in that meeting with those particular people, that particular problem, in that particular environment. And if I'm not aware of what the variables are versus what's the fundamental principle, then I may be learning only tactical things which don't work in some environment. So I really encourage you all to continually go back down to root cause, both positive causes, negative causes, and try to see what the fundamental element is. And that's one reason why, for example, I stress so much these, as Stephen Covey does, these lighthouse principles. I can go anywhere in the world, and I never have to question, should I treat you with respect and fairness, and should I engage you rather than and be transparent in our work rather than keep you in the dark. I don't have to spend time wasting in my brain figuring out how I should do that. But I do have to look very carefully if I'm in a particular subset of Indian society, for example. Well, how do I show respect? And I may obviously check with a native and say, tell me about some of the protocol here, because I want to be respectful. I don't want to unwittingly, be disrespectful. A third encouragement that I have is that you not be afraid to change careers, to change jobs, to take the risk of going from a good position, a good situation, but if you feel that you're not being fully utilized, that your skills aren't being fully developed, that, for example, if all of a sudden your company goes bankrupt or is sold to some other company and you lose your job, have you been developing a wider range of more universal competencies that can be plugged into other situations?
Transferable skills,
transferable,
as they say.
yeah, transferable skills. That has become far more important than it used to be when I was starting out. And now I encourage people, this isn't unique with me, I think it's best career practice now, is that one conceives in a way, you become very clear about the gifts one has, the competencies that one has been developing, and yet those other potential ones that have not been developed so much because they're not required in this particular position. Try to be proactive, have the discipline, have the energy, creativity to figure out, all right, how do I develop these 3 to 4 other kinds of competencies that I don't need in this job right now? And so one could maybe volunteer at work for certain kinds of committees. Maybe it's speaking in front of other people. You know, maybe it's doing certain kinds of financial analysis, marketing, whatever it might be, because then, and you might do it outside of work, maybe in your community, your family, whatever. So then if 2 things, among other things, happen, one, your job stops, or you realize, like most of us do at some point or other, this used to be gratifying, but it isn't anymore. I really would like to do something else, but then you don't at that moment start to develop these other competencies. It's pretty late in the game to do that.
Right. I think this is very important right now and relevant because this is the season of searching for internships and jobs, and what you said really makes us think that yes, we are applying to a company, yes, we are applying to a position, but is it what we really want to do? So I know I was going to ask this question, but you've already sort of answered that by saying, you know, do what you want and don't be afraid to take the risks. So
absolutely. I mean, one of your questions that you had me think about beforehand to reflect on was, you know, the best decision.
that was the last one that was coming up. So.
I know. We'll get to suspense. But well, one of the best decisions that I honestly cannot limit it to one. And by the way, when we do interviewing, we suggest in general you give people multiple. You put it in plural. It seems to be easier. Just a tactical thought, but we'll do interviewer training from both sides of the aisle in our next class, class 6, actually. But one of the best decisions that I made early in my career, in fact, it's really, well, it was after part of 2 careers, that was difficult to make, but I'm very glad I made it. And that was, I was, after some teaching, some selling, I went to Princeton University, a PhD program in ethics, moral philosophy. I loved the subject matter, but after a while I realized it was too academic. It was too abstruse. It didn't involve people enough. It didn't involve practical decision making. It didn't involve organizations enough for me. I needed that experience finally to realize that I was a practitioner, not a scholar person. And I mean, I love scholarship, I love to think, but I need to apply it. The challenge for me was I had a full ride there, full scholarship, fellowship, every expense paid for. Princeton's really beautiful. I was rolling along, and I had to decide whether or not to ride that out very comfortably or make a change. And it was difficult. I made the change. I felt for about a year or so like that was one of the dumbest decisions ever made. I didn't have a full scholarship. I had to go back to work, in effect, to get myself through my doctoral program at Columbia. I had to take the train early in the morning to study elementary statistics, which I guess I'd never had. In other words, I lost in the game of chutes and ladders. I slid backwards about 3 notches, and my friends, back at Princeton, they said, "Why did you do this? This is really dumb." But I did believe in myself, and I felt that I was moving, the vector was moving toward that constellation of my own gifts, what I really was really good at, what I love to do, and what would make a difference in the world. And I'm so glad I did. I mean, it took about 2 years before I started to think, actually, that's a good decision, given all the cost benefits. And as I started into my work, actually, after I finished my doctorate, I had no doubt. I was so glad that I did that. So it did take courage. And I remember, gulp, And then I remember I was working for another company, and I decided that I wasn't being fully utilized. My work wasn't being appreciated, and I wasn't growing. So I quit, and it was a well-paying consulting job in New York City, and I went out on my own. And I remember when the first paycheck didn't come, and I thought again, Ted, you have this knack for making really stupid decisions. And but I did get a couple of the clients that I had been working with under the umbrella of this former employer, and they were actually Merrill and Chase. And so that gave me a good foundation to start. And again, I'm very, very glad that I did that. So courage to continue to make decisions that feel risky, and there probably is some risk, but that in the long run, the net present value is huge. I think every relatively young person early in their career ought to be a little nervous. I mean, I think it would be a delusion to not realize that you're facing something very challenging. I mean, all the Olympics are going on during the Winter Olympics, and you know, these athletes will tell you many of them are quite nervous because they know what they're about to do is very hard. And I have two encouragements. You know, one is that as in one's often STEM work, just do the next step. Don't worry about total transformation. You know, bite-size it. Just say, well, in this half hour, you're going to be your best you, and that's all you need to be. And we all three are growing a little bit. I've learned things already from you and just what you said there. So I found it's very helpful. Yes, overall vector, I think about my overall purpose and direction, who I want to become, but then I get to work on my own life project, and that's one step at a time, one day at a time. This assignment, do your best on this assignment and learn from it. And the second encouragement, and you'll see gradually that I've actually made progress. The increments were so small that I didn't realize it. I mean, sometimes there are these major events where one realizes, wow, I really did change direction. I grew up a noticeable amount. But so often it's an attitude, a commitment of every day, just learning a little more about myself, about other people, about my situation, whatever my subject matter is, and day by day. The second encouragement is that we rely on each other. I mentioned in class, I believe, that I was too long independent because I had to become independent too soon. So that became, in order for survival, I had to become very habituated to self-reliance too long. And so I wish now, as I look back, that I would have been more open to help from everybody. I mean, now and then I took it, but honestly, I thought there was somewhat of a zero-sum trade-off between getting really help, you know, and weakness, and that's not true. That's not healthy. I mean, I understand it fully, and I've been practicing more independence for the last maybe 10 or 20 years. But I'm pretty old, so there was a long period during my career where I did not fully grasp the tremendous value of interdependence. And so I encourage you to make sure that, which you probably do already, that you have friends and colleagues who continue to encourage each other. And when you have a hard decision or challenge coming up, maybe you have a difficult conversation with a team member. If I were younger, I wouldn't make those calls. Now I would, Aniruddha, could you, I just need some encouragement here. I need some courage.
Definitely, most definitely.
Exactly.
What do you need? Let's talk.
Yeah, just that. You know, the fact that I know that I reached out and that someone cares is a really good feeling to go around in life. I'd like to mention one other of the most important decisions I've made, and that is becoming a parent. Okay. Yeah, because, I don't think it has to be a biological parent, but having responsibility for little beings is so illuminating. It's so difficult to do it well. It's so challenging and so rewarding. And for me, it's been, and you know, my guys, they love sports. So I was coaching them in baseball and soccer and football and basketball and about every sport there is. And I learned a ton about leading and managing from being a pretty good dad. And for example, authenticity, which we're going to finally talk about this coming week, I really learned from that family laboratory. Is kids can smell a phony. They don't want personality ethic, they want character ethic, and that it really works. So again, whether it's being a biological parent, whatever, I really encourage people to connect themselves with some kind of family situation where there's responsibility for people growing up. And I just think it does a lot for our self-awareness. I think pets help.
That's a start.
It is a start. I mean, I have this international rescue dog, Oyo, from Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah, I inherited him from my son who had to leave Lagos and was so sad over the phone that Oyo, who had been picked up as a puppy off the streets of Lagos by an American Foreign Service officer's teenage boy, and then Oyo had about 3 different families, and which is not great for a dog. My son inherited him at the compound and had to leave and had to try to find a new home, and I said, I'll take care of him. But you know, I really love the fact that every day this dog has to be fed, has to get water, has to be walked, and I don't care what my philosophy about anything is, that's what he needs pets. You know, it's no mystery, and brings me outside myself to care for another being.
That's pretty analogous to even humans needing that little bit of time and a little bit of pampering.
Exactly.
You can do it, that little bit of motivation. And it's easy to give it to a pet because it's just easier for us to give it to them.
We know what the conditions are, the requirements are for humans to thrive. It's not a mystery. I mean, we can always do more academic research to maybe fine-tune, but we know what those requirements are. And it's not a long list, but, right? I mean, you could tell me what you need in order to thrive. And one of the major goals of our course is that we don't, like an event diagram, we don't say, well, managing and leading, here are the requirements, and then here are the human ones. No, put them together, because every great manager and leader that I've had, they've treated us fully as humans, and gave us our water, our food, our pats on the back, our guidance, don't go into the road, very fundamental things.
That's nice. They're not scoops of ice cream, but a sundae. So,
Exactly.
So something that, a little nice cherry.
But also the broccoli and spinach, you know, the whole thing. We can eat that first, get it over with.
Broccoli and spinach, I'm hungry. Are you? Did you have lunch?
I did, actually.
Okay.
I found never do a video on an empty stomach. I learned that at Warner Brothers. So you can't have too much.
Did you want to talk about Warner Brothers, just as something that
we
all don't know about?
Well, we were talking about before the video started in our small talk, and I mentioned that my dear mother, who's now 98 years old, out in Arizona, when she was much younger, she worked for the head of the TV studios for Warner Brothers, which was a big-time position, and where I learned about women at work and not equal pay, and that was very interesting because she had a very responsible job. It was probably making, I digress, about 1/50th of what the head of the TV studios was. And sometimes I really am digressing, but I want to say this. I had my badge because of her. I had full run of the Warner Brothers lot, which was fantastic. I loved to watch the technical people, you know, the lighting people, the sound, etc. That was amazing. But I would sit in his office, and she was there when he was gone, and I realized that she was basically running the place, and which made me feel very proud of my mom, and helped me. I have 3 wonderful sisters, and seeing these whom I love and admire and respect so much, and that has, I realized it was a great gift. I know I'm digressing on this, but I'm glad I did. That was a great gift for never having to work at viewing women equally. In fact, for me, it was almost the other way around. The women were the stronger ones in my life, and so I had to actually shore up my view of guys. But that really helped me in my work, being very comfortable with females and very respectful, just absolutely believing, why not? Of course, they can contribute in an equal way, and sometimes not even better from a relationship point of view. But in that Warner Brothers experience, coming back to that, I was able to get parts because often, I mean, she was working with casting, and there was a part that fit me perfectly, so fine, I would get it. And so I was on various TV shows like Hawaii Five-0 and whatever. And in addition to being really fun, one of the things that did for me was I had been very nervous in front of other people, very shy. In fact, I had stage fright. And yet I knew that I liked to speak, I liked to persuade, that communication seemed to be a gift, and if it were just among friends, then I was good at it. But as soon as I had to get in front of people, oh, my heart would go like this. And working in TV, and then directing plays, etc., and acting in them for years after, stage fright completely went away. And I'm very glad, because then it can allow me not to focus on myself, but to focus on you guys and what's happening, and not on me. So.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
once again.
Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed interacting with you outside the classroom.